5422. Toll free 866-224-5422. AMP2.tv, the first and only internet television network that's truly plugged in. 866-224-5422. That's AMP, the number 2.tv. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. It's Monday night at 9. Time for Sex Talk with Dr. Richard Siegel, a certified sex therapist and sexuality educator. Dr. Siegel is here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality that you might not have known who to ask. He'll also welcome special guests to talk about a wide variety of topics within the fascinating world of sexuality. So, welcome to Sex Talk.
Good evening and welcome to Sex Talk. My name is Dr. Richard Siegel, and I'm on with my best guest, my number one droog, my best bro, Larry Siegel, clinical sexologist.
Hello, glad to be here.
Thanks for coming back on the show.
Oh, my pleasure.
Give us a call, 888-565-1470. Or we're also streaming live on Facebook on the page of Sex Talk with Dr. Richard Siegel on WNN. You can type in some questions or use the chat feature or just pick up the phone. If you're listening local, we're on 1470 AM, 93.5 FM, or also streaming on the radio station's website, wwnnradio.com. So, Larry, I don't think I said last time we did the show together that continuing in this long tradition of inheriting your old jobs, I even took the show's title from your old Selkirk cable access TV show called Sex Talk. Right? People have to be old enough to know what cable access means.
From the late 80s.
Yeah, 1980s, right? That century.
Oh, yeah, thank you for qualifying that.
Sure, yeah. You know, as a theme, can't help but notice this continuing presence of sex negativity around every attempt to, push the needle, push the needle towards better sexual health. I mean, we've been talking a lot about just what goofy jobs these are.
Yeah.
In a sexually healthy world, there would be no such thing as sexuality educators because that's what parents are. And sex therapists, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, why aren't all therapists sex therapists?
Sure.
Right? Why is this weird specialty, and does that not continue to stigmatize the whole subject?
Well, I think certainly in a lot of ways it does. You know, for years I've sort of been, joking around, saying that as long as I live in this country, I'll never be out of a job.
Yeah.
And that's not anything that makes me feel good.
Right.
It kind of saddens me. Right? One of my fantasies, and I've got a few, but one of my fantasies that I can talk about here is sort of waking up one day and realizing that we get it.
Sure.
Right? We know what we have to do.
Yeah.
Right? We're doing it. It's not anything big deal. It's not anything we have to go out of our way for. We finally accept sex and sexuality as a part of who we are and what we do, and there's finally a degree of normalcy that's set in. I guarantee you I'll be dancing in the unemployment lines.
I think you'd be waking up in Denmark or someplace.
Yeah, certainly not here.
That's part of the frustration of having these weird jobs, is that it's embarrassing that there's so many other places in the world that do get it, that sexuality and sexual health is a no-brainer. It's a matter-of-fact part of life. Remember that conference in Miami? Was it Venezuela? We were at the sexual medicine conference, and a physician from Venezuela said there were 21 sexual health clinics in the country. 21 sexual health clinics in Venezuela, and how many do we have in the United States?
Not only Venezuela, and earlier this year I was in Cuba, and Cuba actually has a very big and a very active sort of national clinical sexology organization, and
Right.
they are very busy. They're out there. They're doing all kinds of things that we're not even doing here. So the fact that Venezuela and Cuba are seemingly more advanced in the acceptance and practice of sexual health is a little mind-boggling.
And why aren't we embarrassed about that?
Well, we
Right?
should be.
People in this country, it makes me nuts. Everybody loves to scream U.S. of A. We're the greatest country in the world. Screw everybody else, and we fail.
Well,
We
that's
have
kind of our
such-
problem.
Yeah.
We have screwed everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think in the process, yeah, we're number one. We're number one. We lead the world in unintended pregnancies. We lead the world in sexually transmitted infections,
the measures.
including per capita rates of HIV and AIDS. We lead the world in sex crime, victimization, sexual problems. If it can go wrong with sex and sexuality, we are number
We're
one.
number one.
Right.
Yeah, it's something we
Right.
should be
And that's,
proud
we should get, I guess they have the big fingers for football games.
Right,
So we have like big foam penises that we can raise. Right? We're number one in everything that can go wrong with sex.
It's havoc, and like Marty Klein described it so many years ago, the sexual disaster industry. So everybody wants,
And the Oprahfication, another
right.
term he used there.
Another brilliant Marty Klein.
Yeah.
Everybody wants sex shows. It would be great if this one could be so sexy and salacious and like this fantasy that we could do Howard Stern crap in here. But we end up talking about problems with sexual health.
Right.
And why attempts at getting sexually healthier are always stymied by this need to either we're afraid of sex, we demonize sex, we pathologize sex. So it seems the only comfort is if we can make a diagnosis out of it, right?
Right. And I think we can, even without going into, I think, where you're going with this in terms of this negative labeling and all this pathologizing. I don't remember who it was. I remember I first heard this idea through our friend Laura Riskel, a brilliant writer out in Colorado, who I think may have gotten it from, this may have come from Rabbi Shmuley, the sexual schizophrenia.
Yes, one of those rabbis in New York.
Yeah.
Yes, we always forgave
Not
him.
Shmuley, but one of,
I think it was Abraham Balfour, I want to say.
That sounds
I
more
tried to
familiar.
Google over the years, and we always forgave him the misuse of the term schizophrenia because it's such a great point.
Right. It
This
really
kind
is.
of split brain.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
what's the list?
Well, we could start with how we sort of introduce girls to sex and sexuality, particularly when we talk about losing their virginity. The common message for decades, I mean, probably even more than just decades, but certainly all throughout our lives and beyond, that how often are girls told, your first experience, it's special, it's wonderful, you'll remember it always, it's a beautiful experience, but it's going to hurt, so
like
try to
hell.
get drunk and get over with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good message.
Yeah.
Right? I remember getting in trouble when I was in elementary school. As a matter of fact, Mrs. Sorensen, if you're still alive and you're listening to this is where this got me. Being sent to the principal's office for questioning, I was in 5th grade, questioning my teacher who basically gave the message that sex is bad and dirty, but you save it for the one you love. And even in 5th grade, that made no sense to me at all.
And your
And
response?
my response was, well, if it's bad and dirty, why don't I go and have sex with people I don't like?
Yeah.
It seemed to make more sense.
Budding sexologist.
Right. So bad and dirty and save it for the one you love. So this sort of inherent negativity, which you used an important word a few minutes ago, that word salacious. We often run into issues professionally where we don't have the opportunity to talk about some of this stuff because it's just not sexy.
Yeah.
And, when you look at, I was even asked by a reporter a couple of weeks ago why shows like True Blood and Game of Thrones and Outlander and a lot of these shows that are very, very sexual in terms of what they're presenting, but there's also a lot of violence. There's also a lot of that salaciousness, that titillation that brings people in.
Yeah.
So it really, in a sense, I would have to say professionally, that even though we see sex out there more than we ever have before, it's in a way that I think, I don't want to say cheapens it, but it kind of taints it a little bit. It keeps it in that marginalized area, and it's not bringing it into our normal everyday life.
Yeah. And, you know, pick a sphere of sexual health, any approach you come up against this kind of, it's a group politically, right? If we talk about Planned Parenthood issues, people go, oh, women's issues. This. If we talk about LGBTQ rights, people go, oh, them again, right? There's always this othering, right? We were talking about this earlier. Even
Right.
sometimes in the field, people fall guilty to perpetuating this kind of othering that we still, it doesn't help us just accept sexuality as normal. It's still part of, I think, a titillating thing that the first thing we know about someone is how they have sex,
Right.
or who they love, or what body parts they have. Like, why is that so important? Because of this overall
Right.
tone. when it
And the
comes
way
to do
people
with
are
sex.
and the way people are identifying themselves, now identifying themselves in the margins. I think there's a very strong parallel between I think what you just said, that very often within the first few minutes of meeting somebody, we know their sexual orientation. Just like for so many people, in the first few minutes of meeting them, one of the first things we have to find out is that they're an addict or an alcoholic. It becomes this identity that they wear,
Right.
and it almost becomes their source of pride.
Right. Yeah.
And then a whole industry has kind of brought those two together,
Indeed.
right? Which is another one of our great bones of contention.
The sex addiction treatment industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Right? Which kind of brought both of those things together.
Yeah.
So it's almost like now it's two great tastes in one, right? And
Two great shames that go better
that's
together.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And
exactly
to make
right.
to make a medical model, this is truly problematic. To have made a medical model now, I mean, it was shaky enough. This I don't want to go into a whole tear, but the history of addiction as a disease. You know the story. We've been talking about it for 25 years. And I like how you describe it as a metaphor run amok. Right? It was whatever 1953 when the World Health Organization said that alcoholism follows the model, a disease model, right? A syndrome, a set of predictable symptoms, predictable outcomes without treatment, right? The disease model.
Right.
And from there, an industry was born 40 years later, 50 years later.
And they also say, ignoring that in 1963, the World Health Organization also declared the term addiction to be clinically invalid,
Right.
to be too subjective, to be too moralistic, and to be too arbitrarily applied.
Right.
And that's when we started using things like substance abuse, chemical dependency.
Right.
So, part of the running amok of these metaphors is also ignoring a lot of what really has been going on that just didn't feed the industry.
And the industry has been fed nonetheless, because
it's
again,
gluttonous.
you could sell more with fear,
Right.
with fear of sex, making sex this out of control demon that destroys lives. As we mentioned last week, the subgenre of sex addiction now, porn addiction. And again, we know from just so many cases that it's not about the porn.
No, it definitely
Right?
is
It's
not.
like, beating someone to death with a chair and saying, say no to chairs. Everybody stand up. Get all the chairs out of the room.
Right.
Right? It's just so missing the point.
Well, I mean, we often use an analogy, related to addiction of fire, right?
Yeah.
Right? Fire can be the most destructive force on the planet. It can also be the most beneficial. So is fire good or is fire bad? Do we just say no to fire because it can be destructive? Yet when it comes to especially things like drugs, and now much more rapidly becoming true for people as they talk about sex, and certainly porn, which, first of all, let's stop all of this utter nonsense about these henny-penny declarations that the sky is falling. Porn is the #1 health crisis in the world. It's going to doom us all, and there's nothing more dangerous and more serious than pornography. I mean, it's truly nonsensical, but it's an industry, and it's making people money.
Well, you know,
And feeding the shame.
Utah and then Texas followed suit, that the governors have declared,
And I think Missouri.
public health crises.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
The #1 public health crisis.
Zika virus
porn.
is a public health crisis.
No, I'm glad to know that
No.
we've gotten HIV beat.
Yeah.
We've gotten all sexually transmitted infections. We've beaten cancer. We've beaten cardiovascular disease. It's now all about porn.
I had to pull this up that I saw today because it just fell on the list of, well, we said we weren't going to call this show Things That Pisses Us Off, right? Grammatically.
That'll be the subtext.
We can't say piss at this hour? I don't know. Well, it's a sex talk, so I guess if we're talking about being pissed off, it's okay. You can't talk about being pissed on.
Yeah, that's
We'll
a
talk
different
about
show.
Peed on.
Right.
Pissed off is okay, I think.
Yeah.
But it's just, I hate to bash. I really do. And before I quote this, because it just makes my head want to explode, I want to preface it by saying, folks in the field, you know, our dear friend David Lay, everybody that's involved in that wonderful Facebook group, if you ever get the chance to listen, I think you're all awesome and wonderful geniuses. You know, the folks that are really fighting this tide of now, you know, fast forward, addiction is a brain disease, and neuroscience is involved, and people, you know, we've long past the days of it being just the great celebrity get out of jail free card. You know,
Right.
I'm not a cad, I have a disease.
Right. See, it's not my fault I cheated on you. I have a
right.
disease.
And of course, always shout out to our friend and colleague Doug Braun Harvey and his research and writing partner, Mike Vigorito. We all get it that the way around this seemingly endless debate is to just focus on a sexual health message, on a sex-positive sexual health message, and not banging our heads against this, you know, sex addiction is BS. But it's so fun because it's just so crazy making, right? I got this ad for a training from the guy who started this, Patrick Carnes, PhD, who, you know, it's almost, well, the training he's doing with this national training, you know, one of these touring training organizations, and just the language and the description of this. First of all, he's talking about sex addiction as a problem, has 4 decades of research to help us understand the problem. I see 4 decades, almost, well, at least 25, 30 years of trying to find some research basis and some theoretical or some therapeutic nail to hang it on, probably hypersexuality, and jam these diagnostic criteria. And now 3 editions of the DSM later, trying and failing to
Each
get
time.
anything close to sex addiction recognized as a real thing. Okay. So
And by the way, I would
only-
say 4 decades of assertion, not research.
Well, you know, this Patrick Carnes, who's an addictions guy, right, with no
Right.
training in sexuality,
Right.
admitted by his own admission, wrote this book and created the sex addiction industry in 1983, right on the heels of the HIV pandemic.
Right.
Of course, at which time, you know, it took him a few years to recant. One time, famously, at an ASEC conference, after kind of give him credit for going into the lion's den,
Yeah.
but saying basically, you know, more than just anything other than vanilla heterosexual intercourse in marriage is sex addict. So if you're gay, you're a sex addict. If you're kinky, you're a sex addict. If you're sexually active,
If you watch porn.
yeah.
Fantasize.
But this kind of, again, standardizing around a disease model. Now this you know, it's held up as a dual certification.
Right.
Oh, you're a sex therapist. I'm a sex addiction therapist. Like that.
They're like they're comparable.
Yeah. I really,
Well-
I hate to bash, but it's just they begged for it. It's
Well,
just,
yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, if
listen to
in the
this
interest of
language.
bashing, I'd say it's not. It doesn't involve training as much as it does drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Not only has our clinical awareness grown, but the problem itself is constantly mutating in that digitalized media has increased availability and options on an unprecedented scale. So, okay, here comes the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Right? It's built a problem which used to be quite focused in age, now spans the lifespan from childhood to elderly. So everybody now, children are sex addicts or vulnerable to being, and make sure grandpa's not spending too much time online.
Right.
Thinking about approach to, we need a whole new level of thinking how to approach our nation's #1 health problem, addiction. And in all of the addictions, sex has been the most difficult to talk about. However, no longer can any therapist not know the basics of an illness that is changing our culture. This is hysterical now.
It is.
Right?
It is.
This is pitchfork
and hysterical
torch
from the terms
hysterical.
of this reeks of hysteria, not like we can laugh hysterically at the absurdity of it.
Concrete tools, strategies, resource assessment will be explored to help deal with the inevitable patient. So they're not saying that therapists need to be sexually informed and aware and not avoid sex unless they're, I'm not a sex therapist, so I have to refer. They're saying, here are the skills to deal with this inevitable, these patients that are going to come pouring into your office as self-diagnosed sex addicts. And as you know, another of our favorite examples, if I go into an oncologist and say, I think I have cancer, and the oncologist says, great, let's start the chemo.
Right.
Will save me all that hassle of
Right, exactly.
tests and right. You don't start the treatment without a thorough assessment and an evaluation.
This is the only area that I can possibly think of in a professional realm where the so-called professionals basically accept the self-diagnosis. And they basically almost encourage patients to diagnose them for them so that they don't have to. They can just, okay, I got the handbook. I know what to do now.
Yeah.
Let's put you through the program,
Right.
which, and again, we don't have to say too much about how ineffective that really is and off the mark.
Well, so I think sex therapists know because they often get folks who've been down that road. Right? They get patients who've been to inpatient treatment centers and been told all kinds of things. We talked briefly on a previous show about this idea of iatrogenic harm, when the professional is injecting their beliefs. That kind of, trust me, you have all the signs. I know this. This is what you have.
Right.
Kind of problem. Inpatient treatment for masturbating too much, especially someone who's been in a sexless marriage, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's hopeful that many people who started in the field as sex addiction therapists are kind of waking up and getting it and getting trained as sex therapists.
Yeah.
While I can complain that all therapists should be sex therapists, they're not. And until they are, I'm happy to promote Modern Sex Therapy Institute's shameless plug, because we have to reach these therapists and train them. There has to stop this knee-jerk. I want it to be a tagline, right? Like plumbers that don't do toilets. This constant knee-jerk reaction. Ooh, there's a sexual problem. I have to refer. Is just another part of the crazy.
Well, the other side of that too, in this sex porn addiction, industry, a lot of sex therapists and a lot of other therapists have it also in their head that, oh, well, if you're going to mention the word addiction, I can't deal with it either. You've got to go see a specialist because I don't work with addiction. You need to speak with somebody who works specifically with addiction. Now, let me interrupt some of the bash. I just want to be very, very clear that we are in no way denying or discounting the fact that some people have trouble with their behavior, that some people use sexual behavior, whether it's porn or partnered sex, as a way of medicating something, as a way of filling a need that they're not getting met, and it can get them into trouble. We are not in any way, shape, or form denying that. Right. It's the label of addiction. It's that whole concept, that whole slate that people are put through that basically, I'm sorry, is lazy, because it's a checklist. We know we go from one program to another. The only thing that changes from patient to patient is the name on top of the page. Treatment plans, aftercare plans are all identical. It's one size fits all.
Oftentimes,
And that is a problem.
Yeah.
Right? That's a huge problem.
But even a step back, from medicalizing something, we may not agree all the time in principle, but again, can't deny that like 12-step groups, self-help or fellowship support groups are really, really effective.
For
and
some.
have been for millions of people,
Yeah.
right? But when a treatment center, when basically a psychiatric treatment facility adopts the same culture, the same kind of, we have the formula, we've got the key to recovery, you have to want it bad enough.
Right.
That takes no accountability for its failure, right? I think AA is allowed to say it's a perfect program if you work it perfectly, but we know nobody's perfect, so you work it to the best of your ability.
Right.
But a treatment center that's just billed an insurance company $80,000 should not be able to go, I guess they didn't want it enough. Right. I guess you got some more research to do, right? We'll still be here when you decide you had enough.
Right.
And we won't charge you again after you relapse like it's,
Right. And it's probably the least expensive, 28-day program you're ever going to find is still going to be at least $20,000. And the pray and go to meetings really shouldn't be their strategy.
Yeah.
Which it often is.
Boy, this half hour really sneaks up on us quick when we get to carrying on about...
Yeah, but I also want to say something, too, again, whether you're talking about... Because right now, I think what we also have to be aware of and ready for is that I think we're really blurring lines. Globally, the industries are blurring the lines between chemical addictions and behavioral addictions. And we're rapidly getting to a point where people are saying more and more that all addictions are the same,
right,
and labeling them a brain disease. Right? Now, without getting too scientific.
We don't have the time.
Right. But I think it is, we can acknowledge that some of the things that the neurobiologists doing this work talk about, how with repeated behavior, brain changes. But we can change it back. We're not stuck.
Yeah, we have to continue this conversation next week. This is too juicy to hang on.
Unfortunately, 1 minute to go is not a good time to start that. But
hopefully, people are going to start calling in. Maybe we've stirred some things up tonight. Tune in next week, Monday at 9 o'clock, Sex Talk with Dr. Richard Siegel. Thanks. Have a good week.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with Dr. Richard Siegel. Join us every Monday night at 9 on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management. 1-393-3287. There is something for everyone. Join us at 7036 West Palmetto Park Boulevard in Boca Raton. 954-393-3287. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Hey everyone, you're now tuned into Just a Tip Radio with your host Sean and Kels, the show that gives you just a tip on relationships, sex, love, and being the best you can be.
As always, joining us is our moderator Ann, keeping us in check,
or at least trying to,
as she does every Monday night at 9:30 Eastern, right here on 95.3 FM and 1470 AM, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app.
Also, if you want more, and you know you do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope. Just search Sean and Kels or Just a Tip.
Hello, 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 and welcome. It is Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you know what that means. We have the men, the gentlemen, the people who are going to get you together in relationship, sex, life, dating. I could go on forever. It is Sean and Kels. Now, keep in mind, these are their opinions. They're not mental counselors. They're not trying to give you coaching and advice. They are telling you like it is from their perspective. This is two amazing gentlemen living life, and I think we all can learn from them.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a tip.
Just a tip. That's all you get. That's it. You don't get no more.
That's it.
That's all we can give you.
That's it.
So, guys, you know what? Since this is our inaugural show,
Yes.
can we say, woo!
Yes.
You can
Yes,
do that. We're
yes.
in there.
Yes.
Somebody gave us a show. Sean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you
I'm-
believe
I'm-
it?
I'm with it. I'm with
That's
it. Yeah.
wow.
So first things first, before we get into today's topic, and today's topic is going to be juicy, very juicy.
I hope so.
Okay.
Can you just introduce yourself a little bit and let the listeners know who you are?
With Sean and Kelso, Sean, it's only right you go first. I mean,
I'm Sean. We do a podcast. We started a podcast. Me and my guy Kels. Been doing it for a while now, and we kind of share our experiences and what we go through and our past and stuff like that. And we bring it to a perspective of real guys.
Yeah.
That go through real situations.
Yeah.
Again, like how our beautiful moderator said, we're not professionals.
Nah.
And we live in the same thing you guys are living life. And that's
Absolutely.
all we can really do is just live our life. And hopefully we can, hopefully train and teach
Make the
and
world a better
make the
place.
world like a better place. Yeah,
You and for
basically.
me.
From you and for me.
the entire human race.
And you are also an amazing graphic artist,
Yes.
app developer.
Yes, I've
yeah.
I've done applications for iTunes and Apple. I've done like 6-7 years in the gaming industry. I've gained a lot of accolades through my portfolio, graphic design, and stuff like that. So I'm pretty versed in graphics.
So, ladies, he's smart, employed, and handsome. Okay, so I say he's a catch. That's a really good thing.
No kids.
And
too,
no
brother.
kids. Oh my goodness.
What kind of life is this? What Bizarro world.
He's
Yeah.
the,
Are you
he's
the
a,
ultimate bachelor?
he's the unicorn. He's the bachelor
I'm the
unicorn.
real, yeah, I'm that guy.
And Kels, please introduce yourself to the audience.
All right, I'm Kels, the other half of Sean and Kels. Again, our podcast every Friday on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those other places. You can just search Sean and Kels. You'll find us. I'm a single dad. I got two beautiful children, two boys, Kennedy and August. And I know they're listening. As a matter of fact, today is my son August's third birthday.
Happy
so
birthday,
August, happy
August.
birthday.
Happy
August.
Shout out to my
birthday.
son August. Love you, buddy. And let's see, I've done some acting. I've done some writing. I wrote a book. I got a bachelor's degree in creative writing. Man, what else have I done? I wrote the book. I had the children. Been in a whole bunch of relationships that went nowhere.
Yeah, a lot of those things.
A lot of
those.
learning stuff, and then
Yeah.
whatever. And then decided to get my boy right here and do a little podcast, and it's taken off, and here we are. So it must be doing something right.
Dreams do come true.
Yes, they do. Yes, they
So
do.
let's get today's topic.
get
Now,
it in.
Let's do it.
juicy topic to our listeners.
Yeah.
Now, we live in a world where, we don't have traditional families anymore.
Right.
People are having kids out of wedlock.
Right.
Divorce is happening.
Right.
And so the question for tonight is, how many kids it's just too many kids for you to start dating a person?
Wow.
That's big.
Let's see here. Let's see. Well, here's how I have to look at it, right? I've got 2 kids. Okay. So if I have 2 kids and she has, if she has 2 kids, that means
That's
4
4
kids,
kids,
plus
plus
me is
you
5,
and
plus
her.
her is 6.
Uh-huh.
I think I want to give it to 3 because you can get a minivan, or unless you get it fits 7.
Right.
So I would say about 3 kids, the max for her to have, because I already got my 2.
Right.
You got to put them all in the mix together right there, and that's 7 altogether. So yeah, 7 for me not 7 for me. 3 for me, 3 for her, 2 for me.
The math for him is just
Yeah,
a little
don't worry
off.
about
The
the
math.
Or
the
maybe
math.
he's speaking something into existence.
Nah,
Yes,
nah.
it's an
Anymore.
experience that he's going through right now that he's adding
Man,
up
tell
right
you,
now.
kids are expensive. All right, you got to think about that. You going out on a date or
Right.
something, not a date, but you're going on like a family event or whatever, right? You got to pay for all the kids,
Plus
all
you
of
and
them.
plus you and your
plus
significant
you
other.
and her or whatever like
Right,
that.
right.
Come on, man. Dollar menu. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, from the perspective of somebody who doesn't have kids, I would think it would. Again, I've been in a relationship where a young lady had 2 kids of her own, right? And that was always a task, because when you go out, you're doing things that clearly is going to involve them, and you, meaning the man, I have to pay for all these things, right? I think for me,
Do you have to pay for all of this?
in a sense, but what I'm saying is, for me, if I had to really give it a count, a physical number, I'd probably say maybe 3, because 2 was a problem.
Really?
Right? When I say a problem, not they weren't problematic. I'm just saying that it was a lot of things, because it was a boy and a girl, right? So that's a whole separate set of stuff that you have to kind of put in perspective. And it was trying to find something they both like, something they both can enjoy, and then you do one thing, one person doesn't like this, and one other child. So for me,
better than me.
three is kind of really pushing the envelope. You know, so
you doing what I'm doing. We ain't, or y'all ain't doing nothing. You know what
Well,
I
you
mean?
know, Kels brought up the minivan industry,
Right,
and that's the limit. But Kels, school buses do
I
exist.
ain't getting I'm not getting a CDL to date you. You know what I'm saying? I can't be passing no extra driver's course just to go out with
just
you.
to go out?
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Unless it's Oprah Winfrey or something like that, and Oprah Winfrey got like 5 kids or something, then okay, we can have a school bus.
Which actually leads to the next question.
just saying.
Now, you guys have your limit,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a lot of it has to do with financial concerns.
right. Yeah. Major part of it is financial.
Well,
Financial concerns.
Yeah.
But what are the possible exceptions that you would make if it's really an amazing individual?
If it's Beyonce, you can have whatever you want. You can have 20 kids. I'm fine. Beyonce, you know. If I had to,
Beyonce with 20 kids,
Beyonce with 20 kids,
bro, that thing is
she got the twins,
wrecked.
Blue Ivy, whatever. She can.
Well, Angelina Jolie has a lot of kids, right?
I'm with
Jolie
that.
adopted a lot of kids.
Right.
She, you know
She
what I'm
don't-
saying?
yeah, she don't
adopted
have-
a
she
lot
don't
of
have
kids.
any
She
kids
didn't
of her own,
have.
though.
I don't think she produced any children.
Yeah, I think she
Right.
did a couple
She
of them.
has
She
children
did
that
actually.
she
She
biologically
did.
Yes.
biologically
put out there.
produced. Yeah.
Yeah,
They kind of thrown in the mix with
I
all the rest of
guess.
the
I
kids.
don't know. I know she got the kid from Cambodia and something like that. And
Some
she got
other
the kid
crazy-
from
yeah,
Malaysia
yeah.
and some from Africa.
Yeah, a bunch of different places.
She could
But
adopt
yeah,
one of my
if it's
kids.
Angelina Jolie, I'm with it because she got the finances. Hell,
Well,
I wouldn't be paying.
Money plays a big
go to the
role
movies
in it
with-
when you're dealing with somebody
Money's a
with
major
children,
issue.
you know
Money's
what
a
I mean?
major
So
issue.
yeah. But I think the exception for me,
Mm-hmm.
if she how many kids are we talking about? Does she have? Because my limit is 3 for her.
So let's say she has 6 kids
Jesus.
from 3 different men.
Oh my goodness.
I got to deal with all these
And,
personalities.
These
but
these
she is
circumstances.
well employed. She's not a Beyonce. She doesn't have millions. She's well employed. She has a bachelor's degree.
How
There's
old
no
are the kids?
the kids range from 7 years old
Mm-hmm.
to 18.
Jeez,
That's a big gap.
She
That's
been knocking them out every couple years.
She
Like,
has 6 kids.
Bro, she got
Every 3 years, every 2 years,
every
she has
couple
a
years she
child?
got a kid, man. But she makes good money. She has 6 kids, good money. One of them is
Right.
18 or
Right.
on the cusp of getting out the house. So I ain't really got to worry about that one. So let's just say 5 because he's
5.
leaving anyway.
These are the things you're formulating.
Just
in
said
your
you got to look at that, right? He's here.
He's
He's gonna
he's
be
in
gone.
college
He
almost.
can't be checking me because he probably you know.
Yeah.
Yo, how about I dated a young lady, right, who had a kid who was like 16, 17 years old,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
This
yeah.
was a while ago. So he was like half my age
Right,
at the
right.
time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I get to the door, this dude, "Yo, hello." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here to see your mom." "Hold on." "Hey mama, hey, somebody to dope for me." I'm like, God, voice deep in
Deep in the mind.
got me feeling some kind of way about it.
Yeah,
But that sounds good that at least you are willing to make an exception.
I'll make an exception. You know, the woman has to be so incredible. You know what I mean? She's gotta be like a knockout in like so many different aspects.
she has
you
to
know what I
have
mean?
a
Her
bunch of
personality
facets
gotta
to
be
her.
just
She has to have a lot of
so
things.
on point that.
But then
I
you
have
also
no choice.
throw in the 3 baby
3
daddies
baby
kind of
dads?
thing. That's a whole nother set of
Ooh,
situations that
man, now I got to deal with these
Now,
3
yeah.
dudes and their personalities and
and the way the storyline usually goes with baby daddies, they always have some problem with something. Oh, don't take care of my child the way this is. Don't do for him this way, or I don't want my son around him or daughter around him. Like that's the rhetoric when it comes to
that's a lot of
It's
chefs
so-
in the kitchen right there. You know what I'm saying?
But
We
that's
have
what it
to come
usually
to
comes to.
something.
It usually comes to that though.
But at what point do you think you'd want to get to that point where you got to sit down with the other baby dads and talk to them like, look, guys, I'm currently.
You know what I had a young lady that you know when she had 2 baby fathers with the two different children, and I was like, listen, I need to talk to them. She straight up like, why? Like, because I'm tired of being disrespected by these. Oh well, I can deal with that, but she never dealt with it, right?
No,
Right.
man.
And I'm just like, but that's the rhetoric when it comes to having somebody that has kids. You want to do the right thing because you know it's coming with the package. That's the
Absolutely.
package deal, right?
Right.
And you know you're gonna take in this package, and you know you're not just doing for the one that you're trying to get with. You're doing it. You have to do for the child at some point. You know, so
Yeah.
it turns into that. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I don't think I've ever had to deal with a baby daddy.
But you are a baby daddy.
Yeah, so you're talking.
So I don't have to deal with one.
You're that guy.
I'm.
You're the guy that I'm always having issues with.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm like this. Look,
You're the one over there. If I get with the mother of your
look,
child,
I
don't
hope
have him
if you
around
get
me.
with the mother of my child, I hope you making her the happiest woman on earth. I hope
say that.
I hope give her
say
the
that.
business. Make sure you
Make her
pay
happy.
for stuff. Make her happy.
Right.
If she's happy, that means my kid is happy, which means I'm happy. I'm with it. Do whatever you got to do
Right.
to not. Do you need tips? Do you need advice on what she likes?
You're not gonna engage me like
Bruh,
that.
let me know.
You're
what
not gonna
you,
give me a
let me
cell
tell you-
number so we could text that
Hey,
night.
let me
Be
tell
like,
you what she
man,
likes, man. You know what I mean?
so-and-so
You got
is-
you gotta
Yeah.
hit it from this angle, all that kind of stuff, bro. I want you to make
You
her
want me to be the best
happy.
person
yes, the
possible
best
for
person
her.
she can be.
I have a question for you
Yeah.
from your perspective. What if the new guy is
Mm.
so amazing that your kids, when they're around you, they always talk about
Impossible.
him?
Impossible.
You don't know that.
Impossible.
How-
Impossible.
Well, the
because
reason-
because
Impossible.
your mind
The
won't
reason-
allow you to believe that
Impossible.
somebody else
My
is just
son
that
thinks
dope.
I'm Barack Obama, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, The Rock. He thinks I'm Bruce Willis in one person.
Well,
Impossible.
that's in your case, but I'm
Man.
dealing with in general. So I had a
Right.
situation where I dated, and it was the only time I broke my rule because I have a rule: no children. But I broke the
At
rule
all?
at all.
Brother can have no kids.
But I broke the rule once. He had a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old boy and girl.
Oh, so you went in
and
deep.
he was a single dad. So I broke the rule. And what ended up happening is the kids attached to me. I took them to school every morning. It was really like a Brady Bunch kind of story.
yeah.
And so when they were with their mom, they always talked about me. And that became an issue for her because she does not see the children but once or twice a week. And during that time,
And she wonder why they talking so much about you.
yeah,
But okay.
why Miss
Well,
Ann?
if
Why
you see
Miss
her all the
Ann?
time, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be whatever.
If-
So, what advice could you give to people like us who don't have children and we're in a situation where we do the right thing and we treat your ex well and the kids well, but it almost creates frustration?
I think the thing about that is, in any situation, this is for everybody listening, you always put the children first, no matter what.
Right.
So you do what is best for them. So if you find that, if I found that my son was talking, about the new guy or whatever, I don't think that I would be affected because I would be like, oh, that's cool that you can look up to this other person. You know what I mean? Because now he has another guy that he can say, oh, here's another strong individual that I can look at and hang out with, and this guy's cool. Oh, he does this, he does that.
So
'Cause
that
there might be
would
things that he can do that I don't do.
So that wouldn't affect you if your son or your sons, because you have 2 kids, two sons, mind you. So your sons come home and say, Dad, so and so is just so awesome. He does this for me, and we go out and play, and then let's say one instance your son says, you know what, I want to call so and so because, man, he's so cool, and he's gonna take us out to this place. Well, how would you feel if you heard that every single time?
But see, that
That wouldn't bother you. I think that's the question where it comes. Like,
Yeah, but
what
that
do you do?
you
What do you do with that?
You have to look at the layers of that particular circumstance. Why does my son feel he can't come to me for certain things, and why would he have to talk to this guy?
Right.
And I would have to talk to that guy as well. Like, okay, look, my son really appreciates you, loves you, likes you, whatever. That's cool. Because I was in a similar situation where my son, my ex's fiance at the time, they were just super tight. You know what I mean? And he liked him, he loved him, and that's fine. I had to talk to him like, hey, anything you need or whatever. If he comes to you, that's fine. As long as he's coming somewhere and it's positive, you're giving him something positive
Got
back.
you.
You know what I'm
Got
saying?
you. Yeah,
like you
yeah.
can't. The thing with this is you can't let your ego get in the way. Your ego destroys everything.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Your ego don't want you to have nothing. So if your kid is coming to you and saying, "Oh, Dad, Mr. Brown,
Right.
oh, he takes me to football games. Cool. I don't like football. So guess what? Take him to every single football game in the universe. Oh, I was hanging with Mr. Brown and he showed me how to, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Great. Because if that means there's something that I can't do and he can do it, is this you're getting it from somewhere.
Got you.
You see what I mean? So
Got
it's
you.
cool with me when you do it like that. That's with me.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And you talked about experiences, but what if they're able to do things financially that you can't do? You can't take them on an expensive, all exclusive. Like you can never obtain what they're giving. Your ego wouldn't creep in just little bit.
Your ego is always gonna creep in when it comes to certain things. You know what I mean? But again, you put your child first. If this guy is able to fly my son around the world, and he can go to China to get Chinese food, you know what I'm saying?
Then do it.
Then do it.
Right.
Do it.
Bring you back.
Bring me back some. You know what I mean? Like, that's cool. You know what I mean? Because now my son is getting an experience that I can't give him. I would love to give it to him. You know what I mean? But I ain't gonna stop you. No. What am I do? Nah, ground that plane. Bring him back. Hey man, you better take my kid over there.
I think coming from my perspective, I think I feel some kind of way. I mean, me as a man, if I can't do these things and if I can't provide these things for my child, like if me as a man, I would feel some kind of way.
So you're gonna want your child to not go?
No, I wouldn't stop him from going. But I'm saying me personally, my own things that I'm dealing with, my own skeletons in my closet about the situation, I would feel some kind of way about that.
Okay.
I would have to look at myself. I'd have to look at my finances. I would have to look at what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis as a man and as a father to my child. What am I doing that I can't supply these things for my child? And it would hurt me. It would hurt me to know that my child can look up to someone else. My child, you came out of these loins. I should be the go-to for everything.
Right.
You can't come to me and you go to Brown for whatever. That'll hurt me as a man.
That goes into your relationship building with your child from day one. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, my son would know that. Okay, that's my dad. That's my father, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
he would know that. But if he can have fun with Brown, that'll hurt me.
Why he can't have fun with you?
I'm not saying he can't, but I'm saying he prefer because he talks about Brown all the time, right?
Right.
Why can't? Again, me as a man, I would feel some kind of way. The fact that my child can't have that same fun with me. He'd rather have it with Brown. He knows that I'm his dad.
He knows
he
your
respects
dad.
me as such.
He understands that you're a dad.
But at the end of the day, like he goes to Brown because that's where the fun is, and I would feel some kind of way as a man.
Then you got to step up.
You said something. You said something really profound, Keldrick, and I just want you to repeat that for the listeners because, like, I want to make T-shirts out of what you just said. Your ego doesn't want you to have anything.
It doesn't. Your ego doesn't want you to have a single thing in this universe.
Can you unravel that a little? Because that was powerful.
Yeah. Think about it, right? When you watch television, okay, and you see a famous person, whoever, let's go back to Beyonce, whatever. You're looking at Beyonce, right? And you're looking at Beyonce like, oh my God, Beyonce's so beautiful. She's so this, she's so that. I want to be that way, or whatever it is you want to be, or however, right? Your ego is like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You have to get out of. You have to set your ego to the side. That look, I can do this. You know what I mean? Because your ego's that pride gets in your way and it makes you. I don't know how to put it. Like, it's frustrating to think that there are things in this world that you can have, right? But you stop yourself from getting it from fear or whatever that case is. Those voices in your head that tell you, "Oh, I can't do this thing," that stop you. You know what I mean? That tell you, "Nah, you can't do it, man." You can. You know. It's as simple as making the choice. You know, I had my son watch this movie the other day, the Will Smith movie, After Earth.
After Earth, yeah.
Yeah, I had him watch this movie, right? You ever seen this movie?
No, I haven't.
One of the greatest teachers.
This movie right here has got to be one of the best movies to teach your kid a lesson. Will Smith made this whole movie to teach his kid one lesson.
Excuse me.
And that lesson is that fear is a choice. You know what I'm saying? It's a choice that you make. You're naturally, human beings are only afraid of two things: loud noises and heights. Naturally. Anything else is a learned thing. Everything. I don't care what you're afraid. You're afraid of the dark, that's a learned thing. If you're afraid of pizza, whatever it is, you learned to fear that thing. You know what I'm saying? Fear is a choice. So when you make a choice, just like being happy is a choice, people wake up, oh, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm whatever. It's a choice you make. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that we need to learn, because when you're a little kid, you don't have that fear. You don't have that whatever.
You don't know that touching your hand on the burner is gonna burn you.
Right. You don't know that. You know what I mean? You had to learn that, or
you had to learn that. Yeah.
All that stuff is learned. And what I feel like happens is we get older and I don't know about we, but I know me,
Yeah.
got a little bit older, got a little, learned some hard lessons and
Yeah.
became slightly cynical about certain things and was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to experience this because
Yeah,
you don't want to
became
hurt.
a
Blah,
little,
blah,
became
blah.
apprehensive about a lot of
You
things.
start
yeah.
putting these layers up, and we talk about layers all the time on Sean and Kel's on our podcast, and we have to kind of like unlearn a lot of behaviors. You know what I mean, and become more accepting and things of that nature. So when I say your ego doesn't want you to have anything, it doesn't. You know what I mean? Your ego doesn't want you to think that somebody could be better at something. When you break up with somebody, right, and you want that closure,
Right.
Yeah.
right? You don't need that closure.
You don't need
your
it, yeah.
ego needs that closure. Because your ego's like, you broke up with me?
I did everything in this relationship.
What are you talking about?
I'm awesome.
But it's me. How could you leave me? Man, you don't need closure. That person don't want you. That's good for you. You just realize, you know what? Kind of cool. Peace out. Blah. I don't need you.
Yeah.
That's the number one killer to me. Oh, I'm leaning all the way back in.
He's getting real in
comfortable.
here.
About to take him a collection.
Snap
Start reaching
the
up in
shirts
his
off,
back.
yeah.
You know what
I think that's a good sign. That means you're going to be here for a while. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So then the question then is, do you ask, do you tell that you have multiple children?
You absolutely should say.
You have to
say. You
put
have
that
to.
out there. Although I did slip up one time, and I don't even want to get into that, but
Yeah.
you have to divulge this information because you know,
have to.
You're coming into a situation. You're coming in. You're trying to get to know somebody.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and you want to know those
Nobody
things.
wants to be blindsided.
Yeah, how
with
you
the
gonna
fact
just
that,
pop out? Oh, by the way,
by
I
the
got
way,
3 kids.
we've been dating for 3 months, but I got kids.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Hold on. Now you
Yeah.
start doing that math. Hold on, you
Yeah.
got 2 kids. Sean drives a sports car, so that's not enough seats for you know what I'm saying. They can't get them all in the back.
At least not legally, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
do
Somebody
that.
ain't gonna have no
Somebody-
seatbelt.
somebody getting
Somebody
left.
don't have a seatbelt.
Do it like my uncle used to do. If y'all ain't ready in 5 minutes, I'm leaving, and then he leave for real.
For real.
Dog.
It's the worst.
Leave us.
So definitely do tell. Is there any particular situation
Mm-hmm.
that would make it appropriate not to say anything?
A one night stand.
Yeah.
A one night stand?
Yeah, man. I ain't trying to. You don't need to
you
know
don't
all that.
need to know anything if it's just a one night stand.
Bruh, let me get it in and get it out. We holler
Yeah.
at you. You know, what you
So
doing
what
that for?
about, like, we live in this age of Tinder, right? Swipe left, swipe right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make it part of your online profile? Do you just put it out there? Or is that something you wait until you're in a conversation?
You definitely wait until you're in a conversation. For one, when it comes to kids, there's again, I'm only talking from experience. A lot of women, again, I'm talking from a man experience. A lot of women that I meet are very apprehensive about having their kids meet the person that they're talking to. They have to be
Yeah.
comfortable with you going into the relationship, knowing that they can say, okay, listen, I have kids. That's one phase of it. Meeting the child or children, that's a whole nother set of stuff that you have to kind of put
you
in.
gotta jump through hoops.
You gotta go through hoops just to at least see them.
You know, it's so funny too. You might sleep with the young lady before you meet the kids, and you
Of course.
would imagine that would be the
Right.
thing you do later on.
Right,
Like,
right,
okay,
right,
you
right.
passed the test. Now you can get all it. Nah, you can get it.
Nah, you get it first.
And okay,
And then,
maybe
okay,
I'll let
listen.
you meet the kid.
Yeah.
Back before I was engaged, when I was online dating,
Uh-huh.
I would sometimes see guys with pictures of their children
Hmm.
on their profile. Is that a nay or a...
Listen,
I don't know about
that's
that.
telling you out the gate.
Look,
Listen, I got
It's
this.
a package deal.
I got
You
this.
finna get all this.
You can see the resume.
Maybe he's trying
bio.
to show his responsibility. You know
That's
what I'm saying?
another-
Maybe,
they
maybe
hook
he's trying to
you.
be
They
like,
hook you.
look, see,
Like,
I'm
oh,
good with
he's-
kids.
he's
Oh,
good
he
with
got
kids.
kids.
Oh,
Oh,
he's so nice with kids.
Yeah,
And then that's the hook.
Whatever.
That's the
You
hook.
know, my legally trained mind is always thinking when I saw that,
Uh-huh.
did you get clearance by the mother? Like, did she sign a release?
You see that stuff like that? I don't like stuff like that.
You don't like stuff-
I don't like stuff like
Because
that.
technically, the mother should have signed a release.
She has to approve of that.
Man,
Yeah.
you ain't gotta sign
She
no
has to approve of that. There's
My
there's
kids.
some petty moms out there.
Well, tell you what, I took a picture with my side of the kid. All right, how about
Your
that? Yeah,
50%?
This my half.
Your
and that's the
chromosomes
picture.
of that?
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is only
that's
the
it.
part that you can sign up on the right side. I got the left side.
That's the
covered.
Kel side?
Yeah, that's the Kel. He looks more like.
Because that's the rage now. In prenup agreements,
Yeah.
people are making a decision in their prenups of what pictures of the children will be on display on
that
social
can't
media.
be real.
That is real.
is
This
not
is a real
thing.
That can't be
thing.
a real thing.
Absolutely.
Who does that? Who's got the time to do that?
Yeah.
LA
How
people.
petty are you? How petty are you to get into a situation with somebody that you have to kind of come to the conclusion whether I put my child on
What do you
display. Like,
what do you win when you sue them? What do you get?
What do you
get? Who gets the most likes?
Your Facebook
You
shuts
get the-
down. Or something.
Well, you can't post pictures of them, so it's a
Or-
result.
or
You
you
don't
get
actually
sued.
get payment, but you get a result that you cannot include them in your Instagram social media posts. You can't include them on your live stream.
That's
so yeah,
petty.
that's a
That is
real
so
thing.
petty.
Wow.
Now,
That's a
we
petty baby
are
mama.
almost-
Ultimate levels of petty.
That is
We are
your-
almost coming to an end, so I want to do one more Hail Mary pass
Yeah.
to you. One quick question. Let's say you're in a relationship and you're dating someone with a lot of children, or you have children, whatever the case may be. What about family planning? Do you want more kids? Do you not? Should that be right out the gate something that you ask?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Do I want more?
Because the young lady I had a relationship with, she had 2 kids, but she was almost dead set on not having third. So that was a big thing for her. She was really like, nah, I don't want any more. And I'm just like, I don't have any kids, so I want kids, right? But she was like, nah, I don't want any more. So it's like, yeah, you gotta let them know. You gotta establish yourself with them with that straight out the gate.
Kels, your thought?
Yeah, sure. She got something I already got. I
Yeah.
don't know. We good, man. I have minivan. You
So
know what I'm
no more
saying?
kids.
Minivan. I ain't got a
Gotta
Sienna
be.
either. I got 8 seats. Nah, I need
You in the Pacifica.
the Pacifica, yeah. I
okay.
need the town and country with the 7.
Well, I want to say congratulations on your first show.
Thank you,
It was
thank you.
amazing.
Thank
and
you.
listen, we are going to be here every Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I know what it is.
So you guys close it out.
You know what it is. You know what it is. It's your boy Sean and Kels. You can catch us every Friday on Facebook Live on our podcast. Just search for Sean and Kels. We broadcast from Hollywood, Florida at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. As usual, stay up, stay down. We done.
Choose one.
Awesome.
I think we got it.
Thanks for tuning in to Just a Tip Radio Show with your boy Sean and Kels. Catch us again next Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern as we continue to give you just enough to get your week going.
And if just a tip wasn't enough, you can catch Sean and Kels live on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, and YouTube Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just search for Sean and Kels. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest videos and sound bites as well. We'll give you more next time.